Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into the weeds on something super technical. We're
Yeah.
looking at how you'd actually build, the ultimate low latency machine for high frequency trading, HFT,
Yeah.
but right from your home office.
Right. And we know the big institutions, they spend fortunes on things like colocation right next to the exchange, dedicated fiber.
Exactly. Millions. But what's fascinating and what the research we looked at shows is that, well, serious retail traders, maybe experimental folks, they're actually closing that latency gap. Quite dramatically, in fact.
They really are. It involves some very specific architectural choices. It's quite an engineering puzzle.
It's not just about raw power, is it? Like, the fastest computer doesn't automatically win.
No, not at all. It's really about minimizing delay, yes, but also that unpredictable delay, the inconsistency. We call it jitter.
Jitter, okay.
And you have to tackle that at every single point in the system. Hardware, software, the network, everything.
So our mission for you today is to sort of unpack that technical battle plan. We're going to look at the specific combo of hardware, OS tuning, software, basically everything you need to really squeeze out that latency.
Yeah, and it's definitely a balancing act. Cost, complexity, performance, it gets pricey fast.
But the core ideas, the principles, they seem to apply whether you're spending, say, $2,000 or maybe 20,000 plus, right?
Absolutely. The fundamentals are the same. It's about where you choose to optimize. Okay, let's dive in then. Starting right at the heart of the machine, the CPU, the processor.
Right. And for HFT, you almost have to flip your thinking about CPUs. The number one thing, really, is single-thread performance. That's often way more important than just having a ton of cores.
Wait, hang on. That feels counterintuitive. Usually for heavy computing, complex simulations, data crunching, you want more cores, don't you? Why not 64 cores here?
Well, think about the most critical path in HFT. What is it? It's receiving market data, analyzing it, making a split-second decision, and firing off an order.
Okay, yeah. A sequence. Exactly. It's fundamentally serial. That specific chain of events relies on how fast one single CPU thread can execute it. You can't really parallelize that single moment of truth effectively across many cores.
Ah, okay. So the other cores might be busy doing other things, logging, risk checks, maybe background stuff.
Precisely. Peripheral tasks. But that core loop, that decision engine, needs raw single-core speed. Clock speed matters. A lot.
That makes sense now. And it explains why overclocking is common practice, right? Pushing the CPU beyond its stock speed, needing serious cooling.
Definitely. You're trying to squeeze out every last megahertz for that critical path. So maybe on a budget, you'd start with, say, an Intel Core i5, maybe an AMD Ryzen 5. 4-6 cores, aiming for something around 3.5 gigahertz or higher as a base clock.
But the pros, they're using different beasts entirely.
Yeah, they jumped to server-grade chips, Intel Xeon, AMD EPYC, but even there, they're not just looking for the highest core count. They're looking for models that can maintain really high turbo frequencies, maybe over 4 gigahertz, often on fewer dedicated cores for the trading logic itself.
Got it. Okay, moving slightly outwards. Memory and storage. RAM and hard drives, or rather SSDs these days. Here, it feels like reliability becomes just as important as speed.
That's a great way to put it. For RAM, sure, basic setups might use 16, maybe 32 gigabytes of fast DDR4, pretty standard.
But high-end.
High-end jumps significantly. Think 64 gigabytes, 128, even 256 gigs. Often faster DDR5 now. But the key difference is they almost always use ECC memory.
ECC, error correcting code. Can you quickly break that down? Why is that so vital if raw speed is the absolute goal? Seems like a feature that might add a tiny delay.
Well, ECC memory has extra chips that can actually detect and correct single-bit errors, random corruption within the RAM itself, caused by electrical noise, even cosmic rays, believe it or not. For you or me, a random bit flick, maybe it crashes a game or you get a weird pixel on screen. Annoying, but okay.
Right.
For an HFT system managing potentially huge amounts of money second by second, a single bit flip could corrupt an order price, a quantity. It could be catastrophic.
So ECC is like insurance against random digital chaos?
Exactly. It's about ensuring the computation is correct, even if it costs a fraction of a nanosecond, which often it doesn't significantly anyway compared to the protection it offers.
Okay, makes total sense. What about storage?
Yeah.
NVMe SSDs are the standard for speed now, right?
Yeah.
Are we just putting the biggest one in?
NVMe is definitely non-negotiable. You need that speed for caching market data locally, maybe writing logs really fast. A 500 gig or 1 terabyte drive is often fine for the OS and active cache.
But the pros go further.
Oh, yeah. Multi-terabyte NVMe drives are common, and crucially, they often set them up in RAID configurations.
RAID. Okay, for people who haven't run into that, that's using multiple physical drives together as one logical unit, right?
Correct. And it gives you two main benefits in this context.
State and...
Redundancy. If one drive in the array fails, the system keeps running, your trading doesn't stop. Uptime is paramount.
critical.
But certain RAID levels, like RAID 0, also stripe the data across multiple drives. So when you read or write, you're doing it across several drives simultaneously. That massively increases the data throughput.
So even writing logs or maybe pulling up historical data for analysis doesn't become a bottleneck.
Exactly. It's optimizing not just for peak speed, but for consistent, uninterrupted speed under load. No unexpected pauses.
That's a fantastic point. Okay, let's step outside the box now. The network. This feels like where many home setups just instantly fall down. Wi-Fi, for instance.
Oh, absolutely not. If you're even remotely serious about latency-sensitive trading, Wi-Fi is. It's a complete non-starter. Forget about it.
Why specifically? Just slower.
It's not just the baseline speed, although that's often lower. It's the unpredictability. The latency jumps all over the place. Interference, other devices, and the jitter we talked about earlier. Wi-Fi is riddled with it.
Right, that variability in timing would kill any HFT strategy.
Completely. Trying to trade HFT over Wi-Fi is probably the fastest way to lose money. You just can't rely on the timing.
So wired connection, mandatory. Ethernet cable plugged right in. But even then, the standard Ethernet port on your motherboard, that's probably not good enough for the really serious setups.
Generally not, no. You need specialized network interface cards, or NICs.
Okay.
A basic setup, you'd want at least a 1 gigabit, maybe a 10 gigabit Ethernet card that's already faster than most standard built-in ports.
But the high-end,
Yeah.
high-end rigs are using 10 gigabit, 25 gigabits, even 100 gigabit Ethernet cards. And they're from specialized vendors. Names you might hear are SolarFlare, Mellanox, maybe Cisco in some cases. These cards are purpose-built for one thing, ultra-low latency. And this is where we hit a really key technical detail, something called kernel bypass. This sounds important.
It is arguably one of the biggest hardware differentiators. Hugely important.
Explain it simply. What is kernel bypass, and why would you spend potentially thousands on a network card just for this feature?
Okay, think of your computer's operating system kernel, like the central post office. Normally, every network packet that arrives has to go through this kernel post office. It gets queued up, inspected, processed, stamped, and then finally delivered to your trading application.
Okay, sounds bureaucratic.
Yeah.
And slow.
Well, it's fast by human standards, but in HFT terms, that processing takes crucial microseconds, adds latency and potential jitter. Kernel bypass is a feature on these specialized NICs that lets the network data completely skip the OS kernel.
Skip the post office entirely.
Exactly. The packet comes in, off the wire, hits the specialized NIC, and the NIC has the intelligence, often with driver support, to place that data directly into the memory space of your trading application.
Wow. Direct delivery. No OS meddling in between.
That's the idea. It's a massive shortcut for incoming data, slashing latency.
That is the gold standard, isn't it?
At the hardware networking level, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we got the hardware sorted, bypass the kernel on the network side.
Mm-hmm.
But the OS itself still needs heavy optimization, right? You mentioned the kernel.
Right. The OS choice matters, and overwhelmingly, the choice is Linux.
Why Linux?
Transparency and control. You can get much deeper access to tune the system's behavior compared to, say, Windows. And specifically for HFT, people don't just run standard Linux. They use real-time or low-latency kernel variants.
What do those special kernels do differently?
They're compiled and configured with settings that prioritize predictable scheduling. They try very hard to prevent the operating system itself from interrupting your critical trading process unexpectedly. They minimize those OS-induced delays.
So you install this special kernel, and then the real surgery begins. You mentioned aggressive tweaks.
Yeah, you basically start stripping things down. Disable any background service, any daemon that isn't absolutely essential for the trading task.
Okay, lean and mean.
Then you attack power-saving features. Modern CPUs constantly try to slow down to save power. You turn all of that off. CPU frequency scaling, disabled. You set the CPU governor, the policy manager for clock speed permanently to performance mode, maximum speed all the time.
No throttling allowed.
Never. And then you get even more granular.
Like dedicating cores.
Exactly. Professionals often disable hyperthreading because virtual cores can sometimes introduce unpredictability. Then they use Linux tools like TaskSet or Numactl. These let you pin a specific process, like your order execution logic, to a specific physical CPU core.
So core #3 runs only the order sender, and nothing else can bump it off.
That's the goal. You isolate critical tasks on dedicated hardware resources. It eliminates contention, further reduces jitter. The whole system, from BIOS settings upwards, is tuned to give absolute priority to that trading workflow. It really hammers home that point. The entire machine exists solely to execute that trade path as fast and predictably as possible. Precisely.
Which leads us neatly into the software layer.
Okay.
We bypass the kernel with the fancy NIC. How do we make sure the software itself doesn't reintroduce delays?
Well, you mirror the hardware approach in software. There are specialized libraries designed to, again, talk directly to the network hardware, bypassing the kernel's built-in networking stack.
More bypassing. So libraries like
You hear names like DPDK, that's the Data Plane Development Kit, originally from Intel, or PFRNG. These libraries provide APIs that let your application grab packets straight from the NIC driver's buffers in user space. So it's like a two-pronged attack on kernel latency. The NIC hardware does its bypass, and then the software uses libraries like DPDK to do another bypass. Essentially, yes, it ensures the data path from wire to application memory is as short and direct as humanly possible with current tech.
Are there other software options too?
Yeah, the NIC vendors often provide their own proprietary libraries. Solarflare has OpenOnLoad, Mellanox has VMA. They're specifically optimized for their hardware and aim to make standard socket communication much faster by, again, avoiding kernel overhead where possible. It's all about shaving off those last few microseconds.
Incredible optimization. Okay, so the system is primed, the data arrives instantly. Now, the application makes a decision. How does it talk to the outside world, to the broker, or the exchange just as quickly?
That's typically done using the FITX protocol, Financial Information Exchange.
For FIX, that's the standard language, right?
It's the lingua franca for trading communications globally. It defines the message formats for orders, executions, market data, etc. But just knowing the protocol isn't enough. You need a FIX engine
And the engine's job is?
to take your internal trade command, encode it into the precise FX message format extremely quickly, and then parse the incoming FX messages from the exchange just as fast. Encoding and decoding speed is critical.
Are some engines known for being faster than others?
Definitely. There are popular open source options like QuickFix, great for getting started, very robust. But when pure speed is the absolute priority, traders often turn to commercial engines like, say, FX8, which is specifically known for its low latency encoding decoding.
And the language you write this engine in or use it with, that matters too, presumably.
Hugely. You'll find these high-performance engines are almost always written in compiled languages like C++ or sometimes Java, tuned very carefully. You generally avoid interpreted languages like Python for the core FX engine itself, because the overhead of interpretation adds latency you just can't afford at that point.
All right, C++, there is Java for the speed-critical messaging.
Okay, now, not everyone is building a custom C++ FX engine from scratch. What about the trading platforms people might be more familiar with? Where do they fit in?
Yeah, platforms offer a layer of convenience, tools, charting, maybe easier strategy development. Think of things like QuantConnect's Lean Engine. You can use C# or Python there. MetaTrader 4 or 5 are huge, especially in Forex. NinjaTrader, TradeStation, they often have proprietary scripting languages.
Convenient, but there's always a trade-off, isn't there?
Always. That convenience layer, that abstraction, it adds latency. It's another piece of software between your logic and the market.
So the most latency-sensitive traders, they skip the platforms.
Often, yes. They connect directly. They'll use the broker's native API, like Interactive Brokers as a well-known Java API, or they'll connect directly to a broker's FX gateway using their custom high-performance FX engine, cutting out the middleman, essentially.
Exactly.
It's more development work up front, but it removes layers of potential delay. And, just a quick note, while there are lots of great tools for crypto trading, Zenbot, CryptoHopper, things like that, they're generally not built with this same obsessive focus on nanosecond level latency that you see in traditional HFT. Different game.
Got it. Good distinction. Okay, this brings us back around nicely. We've seen the pieces: optimized hardware, tuned OS, specialized software. How stark is the difference, really, between an entry-level, fast setup and a truly professional one, both in terms of performance and, well, cost?
The gap is immense on both fronts. Let's sketch out a budget-conscious but still serious rig. Maybe you spend $1,000, perhaps $2,000.
What's that get you?
You get that good mid-range CPU we talked about, prioritizing clock speed, maybe 16 or 32 gigs of standard fast DDR4 RAM, a decent NVMe SSD, a 1 or 10 gigabyte Ethernet card, maybe just using the motherboards if it's good.
And performance-wise?
That's actually a very capable machine. You can run moderately fast strategies, connect via a broker's API, achieve pretty good latency, certainly much better than average, good for experimenting, maybe lower frequency strategies.
Okay. Now, the professional system, you mentioned $10,000 plus. What does that look like?
It barely resembles a home PC. It's basically a rack-mounted server or components you'd find in one.
Well,
You've got the high-end Xeon or EPYC server CPU, maybe fewer cores but screaming fast turbo speeds, 4 gigahertz plus. You've got 64 GB, 128 GB, or more of that ECC RAM we discussed.
right, the error-correcting stuff.
Multiple terabytes of the fastest NVMe storage, probably in a RAID configuration for speed and redundancy. And crucially, those specialized smart NICs, Solar Flare, Mellanox, the ones capable of kernel bypass?
Running that custom low-latency Linux kernel?
Absolutely, with all the tuning, performance governor disabled services, process pinning, and the trading logic itself, almost certainly custom built in C++ or maybe Rust nowadays, using libraries like DPDK or the vendor's low latency stack. It's a completely different category of machine. Totally, and that's before we even get to the really extreme edge.
There's another level.
Oh, yes. You mentioned something in the notes. FPGA coprocessors.
FPGAs, field programmable gate arrays. That sounds like supercomputer territory. What are they doing with those?
Think of an FPGA as a blank chip of silicon that you can rewire, program at the hardware level to do one specific task incredibly fast. Faster than a general-purpose CPU running software could ever hope to achieve.
And in HFT, that task is.
Often it's parsing the incoming network packets, processing the market data feed at line speed directly in hardware.
Wait, so the data comes off the network cable, and instead of even waiting for the CPU, the FPGA hardware itself analyzes it.
Pretty much. The FPGA can be configured to recognize specific patterns in the data stream, extract key information like price and volume, and potentially even trigger actions, sometimes before the entire network packet has even finished arriving. It's hardware acceleration taken to the absolute extreme.
So you're not running software to analyze data anymore. You're running a custom circuit designed solely for that purpose.
That's the concept. It pushes the processing right to the point of reception.
Wow. That really just perfectly illustrates the core theme here, doesn't it? HFT optimization is this relentless war on latency, fought by eliminating any potential delay or queue at every single layer.
Exactly. From prioritizing that single CPU thread, using ECC RAM for reliability, specialized NICs for kernel bypass, real-time OS kernels, custom C++ code, all the way to FPGAs, it's all about predictable, minimal delay.
A masterclass in architectural focus. Okay, that brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. If the cutting edge today involved dedicating custom hardware like FPGAs to process data the instant it hits the wire, achieving picosecond level processing in some cases, what's next? What kind of technical breakthrough maybe in optical computing, maybe a fundamental change in how exchanges distribute data, maybe something else entirely could completely reshape this low latency architecture in the next, say, 5 years?
It's fascinating to think about where does the next bottleneck emerge and how do you engineer around it?
Something for you to mull over. What will the next front in the microsecond war look like? Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.